doing a little bit of a we're going to edit a map. I'm saying all the same stuff I just said 5 minutes ago. Whatever. We're going to be installing Alfalfa the right way. And making it work, right? So what we've got is we have a download from Antler.22. Antler.22 on his itch.io page has released a zip file that has Alfalfa, some Alfalfa configurations, and the general idea of how to do it if you are brand new to modding and you don't really understand anything. But it's not the full picture. When you add Alfalfa, there's a whole list, and I have a checklist of what you need to do. All of these things need to be done for Alfalfa to work properly on a map. And we've seen plenty of maps, a few maps get released where Alfalfa just didn't work on the map for one reason or another. And it's usually because they missed one of these things on this checklist, right? And the instructions that are coming from the mod pack that most people use, which is the one from Antler.22, only include like 4 of these things. So you were only doing 4 out of 10. Is it 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11. It's 12 steps, and you're only doing 3 out of the 12 steps. So that's not enough, and I don't understand. This is the full list, and we're going to go over it. So we're actually working on this map called, I don't know what it's called. It's called Kingdom of Walchalla in the code. But then the description says, welcome to Velasco. And so I'm playing this on my own, and we'll do a quick like fly around map tour of it. It's just so you guys can see. So this is the map. PDA is open in the lower right hand corner. This is your starting farm. This is where you start out. And you've got this very hilly, very, very hilly map. Lots of kind of dirt roads. This is not how the grass normally looks. I changed it because what it was there irritated me. As many people do. Oh, thank you. This is Velasco, right? And this is a random map that I got off of somewhere. It's nice and hilly. I was looking for a hilly Russian map that I go mowing some stuff and having a little bit of fun on my own time. But then I realized that they have Alfalfa on this map right here. See, Alfalfa, nice. But it's not actually added properly. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to go through and fix it and make sure that it's added properly. But we'll do a quick fly over this map because this map is actually really cool, really nice. I like it a lot. But here's your starting farm, and I'm going to tab over to the dealership and start here for like tour the map starting here. Here's the dealership. It's nice because it's very hilly. Lots of weird things. It's got roads. It's got really nice decorations that go right up to the edge of the map and off the edge of the map. In many cases, you don't know where the map edge is. Can I get through the border again? There we go. It's got a nice little town, which is, again, not easy to see the map edge. The map edge is hid really well. Got a nice little town, dealership, church, production buildings, gas station, very, very custom BGA, which looks awesome with custom colors on the digesters, a custom input for the digester, custom silage clamps, whatever this is. I think this is a grain mill of some kind. But then if we fly over the map, we've got everything from small fields to large field. Here's like a farm area that's kind of set up for build your own. And you can buy individual plots here as your own, which is pretty cool. And then we've got very, very hilly terrain. And like this field here is the Alfalfa again. It's a massive, massive hill. And I like how there's a silage clamp in the middle of the hill. It looks really nice, but these are challenging hills, especially with lower horsepower machine. Because I mean, this hill is like a 30-degree hill. 32 degree hill. Like it's very, very steep. So You want to mow that hill? Good luck. And I've tried, and it's super fun and challenging, but there's lots of grass fields. Most of these are grass fields in the middle of the map, and lots of forestry with relatively good trees to do forestry on. We've got probably the best farm that's set up on the map right here, which is set up here with lots of cows. I love the tile ramp roads around the farm, which is pretty cool. That feels legit for the area. Lots of storage. And we even have like a little hamlet kind of town over here with grapes and apple trees and a stone mill and all this stuff. It's a nice map. And there's also a lot of, I don't know if you can kind of see this, but like right here, these open areas, these are meadow, right? And I like how it's multiple shades of meadow that are kind of mixed together. I don't know how they did that. I think that's just in how it was painted. But can you see there's multiple different color shades of meadow? I don't know if you can replicate that, but it's a very cool look and I like it. But I like that there's like these big open meadows that you can buy and mow and actually make money off of, but it's not just all crop fields. So I like that. But anyways, that's not what we're doing today. Today, we're going back to the starter farm because I'm actually playing this map and I'm on my second day and I want to buy the alfalfa field. And so this is the alfalfa field. The problem is this alfalfa is not set up right. And so it's as if the map author said, oh, I'm going to take alfalfa from Antler, and it actually has comments in the code which is referencing the Antlers alfalfa. And I'm going to do step 1, and then I'm going to call it a day. And didn't go through the whole process. So if we look, alfalfa is here, right? It's in there as a crop type. It has growth stages, all that kind of stuff, farmland. But it doesn't have, it's not listed here in our commodities. It's not a crop. There is no alfalfa hay. There's no alfalfa. There's no, like, you can't, it doesn't exist. It's just a crop that looks different. And then when you mow it or harvest it or whatever, it outputs grass. So we're going to exit out of the game and we're going to start looking at the code because the code is where the issue is, and the code is where we're going to follow it. So I have a couple things downloaded here. I have Antlers 22's alfalfa, which is a zip file, which contains the foliage file, the fill planes, so how it should look on the ground, which is good because we need that. And then these 3 files, which are kind of instructions on what you have to add to get it to work. But these are not the full, like he has 3 instructions and basically 4 if you add the alfalfa foliage. But my list is 12 items long. And these are all of the things you actually need. He's only calling out 3 to 5 of them. I think some of them, like this one, has the categories and converters, which are both things that I'm calling out as separate steps. But then the map itself is totally done right. So anyways, the one thing that I would definitely edit if you're planning on using Antlers textures is this. So if you see here, if we have our states, these are the states for the foliage. So if you copy directly from Antler, you're going to get a file that looks like this. This is wrong. This number shouldn't be there. It should be like this, right? To follow the pattern of every other crop in the game, these foliage states, which are used in multiple places in the game, should all be the same, matching the patterns that are established in the base game. So these are actually wrong and not done correctly. And so the first thing you're going to have to do is fix all of these, right? But I've already done it, so we're not going to do that right now, but that's the first thing to look at. So step 1 of our checklist is to make sure that the foliage is copied over properly. And so we're going to look at this map and see if they've done it right. So foliage, alfalfa, right? And it has alfalfa. This is the alfalfa from the map. That's actually already added to the map. And as you can see, they already renamed the growth states properly. The one additional thing they added was they added a tire track. So this map, for whatever reason, I guess they like tire tracks, and every single crop has tire track destruction turned on. I'm going to leave it that way. That's fine. But we have the foliage in the map. We know that it looks right because it's added to the map itself. And so the first thing to do is to add it to the foliage. And the second thing, which is not here, and so your next step, if you're wanting to add a crop, is you need to add it to the map i3D. So let's look at the map's i3D, not in Giants Editor, in code. This is important. So what we're going to do is we're going to go here and we're going to find meadow. And as you can see, we have a file listing at the top for meadow. And if we go to the next result for meadow, we're going to have a foliage type down here for meadow. Now, if we wanted to add alfalfa, what we're going to do is we're going to come down here to the bottom of the list, add the foliage type. Now, if it wasn't here, the easiest way to do this is to, at the top, because we're still looking at meadow, is to come in here, somewhere in here, and go on here and create a file. So copy, this is how to do it. Copy, paste, blah, 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 foliage, alfalfa, you're referencing the local foliage folder. You're not referencing data folder. You're referencing the local foliage folder for alfalfa. And then you're going to give it a file ID of like 59, something ridiculous, something there's no way it's going to conflict with something else, right? And then you come down here to your foliage types at the bottom of the list. Remember, at the bottom of the list, add alfalfa. If you add it into the top of the list for an existing map that already has crops on the map that are like when you start, there's wheat in certain fields, it will mess up the order of the crops and your map could look different. So always add it at the bottom, and then you'd add alfalfa at the bottom and you'd add it with the 5.9s. And then the next step would be to hit save. And then you'd open it up in GE once and then hit save. And what happens is as soon as you add it to GE, and you hit save, GE will renumber these into the next XML ID in order, just like it is now. So this person already added it. We don't need to do that because it's already been done, right? So we don't need this line. So it's already been added to the map. We're not going to change the map. The map part's done. So that's step 2. So add to the map. Okay, great. Now we need to add to the fruit types. Now there's 2 ways to do this in FS25. To add alfalfa to the map itself so that the game engine knows that it's there, we need to come in here to our map file, the XML file that controls the map. And we need to make sure that it's added. Now, some maps, this is how they've done it here. Other maps, let me see if I can pull up another map. Do I have another map here in this folder? I don't remember. Yes. Let's see if Tassie Farm did it right. Tassie Farm also did it. So I would always recommend replacing the fruit types files like this. You have your own configuration files for fruit types, fill types, density map, height types, just like this map is already done. So we have a configuration file and we have density map, height types, we have fill types, and we should have fruit types. Okay, we have fill types. We look at map.html, fruit types. And the reason that this is giving me errors on this stuff is because it's using the old version of this file. We're going to ignore those for now. Config fruit types. And so as you can see, they've added in the fruit types like this. I'm going to do it at the bottom because I personally at the bottom is the right way to do it. But they're basically saying, okay, I want wheat, barley, but I want all of them. Some of them are going to reference the data folder, and some of them are referencing local folders for stubble destruction. I like how the author added in this little comment to themselves. Why did I add this here? I added it for stubble destruction. Okay, so now we're added to the fruit types. We know in the map file here, we have a line that says fruit types, pointing to a file name that says, hey, use the local version of this file, not the data version of this file, right? Because that's important. If we go back to our checklist, we're going to check things off. Fruit types. Now we did the fruit types, but let's look at the fruit types and make sure we're adding it to the fruit type categories. That's important. So fruit type categories are right here, right? And we want to make sure that the crop we're adding, in this case, alfalfa, has been added to the fruit type categories. So this is saying for a direct cutter, right? Which is like a forage cutter, like for a chopper on a, what's it called? A forage harvester. That direct cutter is for a forage harvester. So you can cut this with a forage harvester. You want to be able to cut it. You want to be able to seed it. So it's been added to the sowing machine. This is for sowing machines. So it's normal seeders. If you wanted a planter to plant it, you'd add it to the planter category. But that's not the case. So we want it in the sewing machine. We want it in the mower, right? And eventually we're also going to add it to the combine mower, but that's like one of our last steps. For right now, we're just going to leave it as a fruit type category. So we know that alfalfa, if you want to use a mower on alfalfa, the mower will work. And so that's the next step as far as, whoops. All right, that one is also done correctly, so we can check it off. We know that it's done correctly. Now, if we go back here to alfalfa, here's the first problem. Actually, no, we're going to go to the fill types, right? So fill types is the next one. We look in fill types. Now I'm looking in the fill type file, and if I search for alfalfa, right, we have a fill type for alfalfa, right? With the name alfalfa, which is added at the top of the list, which is fine. But that's it. It was added as a fill type, but there's no alfalfa windrow. There's no dry alfalfa. There's no dry alfalfa windrow. There's nothing we can use for custom fill types. So what they've done in this map, it technically is correct, is that if we look at the fill type converters, they're saying if you mow alfalfa, I don't know why they have clover here. Clover's not even part of this map. Oh, we'll figure that out in a minute. If you mow alfalfa, it's gonna, you TED alfalfa as a crop. It will create dry grass windrow, but since alfalfa can't actually be on the ground because it's not set up that way, this line doesn't make sense. This line doesn't make sense either. I'm gonna pick up from alfalfa, but I'm gonna get grass windrow, right? That doesn't make sense because alfalfa can't actually be anything. And the reason that doesn't make sense is if we go back to our actual file for the fruit type, we've defined the fruit type's name is alfalfa. But when you cut it, what drops on the ground is grass windrow. So the action of cutting it with a mower or with a forage harvester, the conversion from the fruit type to fill type happens right here. And this defines what happens when you actually cut or mow it. So right now they have it set up to grass windrow. But the problem is I don't want that. And that goes against the instructions from Antler. If we come in here and look at Antler's alfalfa, which is right here, even here, it's the fill type is alfalfa windrow, right? Alfalfa windrow should be a fill type, but we don't have a fill type for it. So that doesn't make sense. And exactly, Kansas Boy, getting grass from alfalfa is annoying. Every other map and every other instance of alfalfa has it actually as its own crop with its own bales and all that kind of stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to make that happen. So the first thing to do is say here, I want alfalfa windrow. And I want this to be true. I want to use it for field missions. It should be shown on map true, but I want to get alfalfa windrow for it. And then the other part that's missing here is the conversion, right? So if we look at Antlers alfalfa, it says liters per square meter, which is important. That's how many liters per square meter you get from harvesting alfalfa. Now, since it's a grass-based crop, this liters per square meter should be around 4, between 4 and 5. Like for meadow or grass, the number should be, I think if it's here, if you look at grass, if you look at the grass, the liters per square meter is 4.37, right? And if we go back to alfalfa, liters per square meter is 6. So we don't want this one here, but we want the liters per square meter at 6, which means we're going to get a ton of alfalfa whenever we cut it. And then the cut height is actually going to be 0.5. That's fine. Those are all fine. And that's going to work. So we have alfalfa set up now, but now we're referring to a fill type that doesn't exist. And so we can go back to our instructions, close that one, close that one. We're going to go back to our instructions. And this is straight from Antler. And he says, add to map fill types, right? So first of all, you're going to need converters from alfalfa to dry alfalfa. So we need to fix that. So that's the first thing to do. So that's going back over to our fill types file. And we can actually put these side by side so we can see them both, which might be helpful. So first of all, we want alfalfa windrow and dry alfalfa windrow. So this should be for the tedder, alfalfa windrow, dry alfalfa windrow, right? That's what it should be, right? And then because when a tedder passes over something that it's already processed into a dry state, you need this line here for it to work properly. Otherwise it gets all confused. But you need this line here so to convert dry alfalfa into dry alfalfa. So that means if you pass a tedder while it's running over a dried crop, it doesn't mess up. And you can see that here. Dry grass windrow, it has this 1-to-1. If the tedder passes over dry grass windrow, I'm using a tedder, it won't do anything. Same thing with straw. If I pass a tedder over straw, it's just going to turn back into straw. We also have, for some reason, this here. I don't know why that's here because that doesn't exist on this map, but I'm just going to comment it out. So we have our tedder conversion and pick up header grass. Same thing. We're going to need alfalfa windrow, which is what goes onto the ground, converted to not grass windrow. What? Oh my gosh. So, okay. All right. So again, this is another place where Antler's instructions are very confusing and they don't necessarily work, but they are technically correct. So if I pick up alfalfa with a pickup header on a forage harvester, the way Antler's instructions set it up is that if I pick up alfalfa, it's going to convert to chaff in the forage harvester, which technically makes sense because then you don't have to add all of these other steps here. For if we have in here, we don't have to add into the bunker silos. we don't have to worry about the bunker silos because we already have chaff in the wagon. So we're just going to be dumping chaff in the bunker silo. That's totally normal. And it'll have to get converted somewhere. So why not convert it in the forage harvester? Other maps don't have it set up that way. Other maps have it show up in the forage harvester as alfalfa windrow and convert it in the bunker silo by editing the bunker silos. This is the easy way. We're going to do the hard way so we can see what the hard way is. The easy way works on all bunker silos everywhere. The hard way means you have to customize each bunker silo. Let's go with the easy way for now. Let's follow the instructions, I guess. I've never done it this way, but why not? So chaff factor 1.0. So it's just a pickup. So we're just picking things up. So we're not going to give ourselves a bonus for conversions. So dry alfalfa windrow, right? And in some ways, doing it this way, right, with the pickup header, means that on our checklist, we can check off, so fill type conversions, that's what we just did. And that means we also don't need to do this. So that's done. So fill type conversions, bunker silos, we've done both of those things kind of in one fell swoop by converting to chaff when it gets picked up. That means that, you know, we don't have to deal with the bunker silos. Everything works fine. So I actually don't mind that. That's not bad. The next thing we need to do is the fill types themselves. So we have, and then let's see what we've added. So they've added alfalfa, right here, but they didn't add alfalfa windrow and dry alfalfa windrow, which doesn't make sense. So I'm going to copy those and I'm going to add them here. So for any crop, you need all three. You need the basic one. For every fill type, there needs to be a 1-to-1 mapping with for every fruit type you're adding, there needs to be a 1-to-1 mapping with that fill type. And that's specifically for the HUD. So for the HUD thing to show up in the prices table, this is what needs to be there. Now, technically, this COSA show on price table goes false. The reason that's there is because we don't sell the alfalfa fill type ever. It's just there for the game engine to work. What we do sell is the alfalfa windrow. And it appears that we do have a translation for this. So we're going to use the translation. Is bulk type equals true? Is bale type equals... Now, this one is alfalfa is bale type equals false, which means there is no bale type for it, which is fine. But we are going to create bales, so we're going to leave it there. And then the economy, price per liter, they had set to 45. Antler sets it to 15. If we compare with grass, on our data directory. Do I have the data directory open anymore? No. Let's see what I did for prices on my map. I don't remember what I did, but I'm going to check. Config. I'm pretty sure I touched the prices. Sorry, fill types. Alfalfa up. So dry alfalfa 105. Alfalfa windrow 95. So 095. So we're here. We're editing this one. We're going to say 95 for alfalfa. 095. And this one's going to be 105. So the dry alfalfa is going to sell for a little bit more than the regular alfalfa if it's just regular alfalfa. So doing the act of drying it makes it sell for more. And then then of course it turns into silage. Right? And so we're going to go with that. And then the last thing we're going to do is make sure if we look at this side, and so we don't need it side by side anymore. We're going to put it back here. save. We're going to make sure that the foliage files have the right, these paths are right. Map, HUD, fill, alfalfa, right? So map, we need to make sure these files all match what they actually exist. So map, HUD, fill types, HUD, fill, alfalfa works. So that HUD is right. And this one is correct. The one I copied from Antler is wrong. Because it's based on the map. So there's nothing they can do about that. And then the fill planes are also wrong as well. So we did the HUD. We go back. We have to make sure all of these textures are correct. Otherwise, it won't look right. And that wouldn't make sense. So we have normal. Sorry, fill planes. Fill planes. So this person didn't add the fill planes. So let's add the fill planes. So we're going to copy these files. Copy. And we're going to go over to our new map and paste. So now we have all these fill planes. And it should be map / fill planes / whatever. So map, not maps. Map / fill planes. Dry alfalfa windrow, diffuse alfalfa windrow, height, normal, displacement. Okay, those are all fine. Except for in the distance. So all of these textures that we just added are all correct. And the last one we have to do is we have to copy the HUD for dry alfalfa. Which, does Antler give you that? He doesn't. What? How do you not give a HUD for alfalfa? HUD fill alfalfa, HUD fill alfalfa. He gave... They use the same HUD. That doesn't make sense. Whatever. I'm going to use the same HUD. Also, they should have their own HUD files. HUD is like basically the little icon that shows up in game. I'm going to give them the same file for now. We will change it. I'll show you guys how to change it and how to create a new HUD file. But yeah, that's how we're going to do it for now. So now we've done up to fill types. So the fill types are there. We need to make sure it's in the fill type categories. So what are the fill type categories? So if we hide the fill types, we did that. We did the fill type converters, right? Done with that. Now we have fill type categories. Now we have to make sure that our new crop goes into all of those things. So we need to make sure that, I think I didn't spell that right. Hold on. Actually, we'll do this one. We need alfalfa windrow, copy. Alfalfa windrow, dry alfalfa windrow. So we need these two things in a lot of places. It doesn't need to be in a combine because we can't combine it. It should be able to be in an auger wagon, sure. It should be able to scoop with a shovel, sure. Should be able to store in a farm silo, maybe. It actually shouldn't be the farm silo. It should be the, what's it called? Grain dryer. I don't remember what that one's called. Forage harvester, silage trailer, forage wagon, hayloft. That's the one I'm looking for. So alfalfa should be stored in a hayloft for sure. It should be in loading vehicle. Sure. copy. Loading vehicle, yes. Train wagon, yes. Product, no, because it's not a product you can sell, as far as I know. It should be in selling station bales, that's for sure. And so sometimes if you're trying to edit a map or you're adding a map, sometimes the things you want don't exist. So go ahead and add them. Now you'll notice that as I'm adding these things to the fill type categories, these are not all the fill types. Where are all the other fill types? They don't need to be there, and that's the key. When you're making a custom map, Giant's engine knows how all of the default crops work. And so it doesn't require you to define any of the default crops unless you're making a change. And so it will merge what should be there by default with this. So if you notice the fill type categories, I don't have wheat and barley and oat and all that kind of stuff here. I don't need them here because the game already knows where they should be and knows which categories those things are in. So as I'm editing categories, I don't need to know those things, right? But I do need to make sure that, that the crops that I'm building are in the right places. So copy train wagon. I don't know what product Z is. Loading vehicle, hayloft, shovel, fork. Oh, we need a fork. And that's what's confusing about Antler's thing, is because this thing is for adding alfalfa, but he has all this other stuff: mint, ridrow, dry alfalfa, triticol, wheat, barley, oat. Like none of that is needed. That's not how it works. That's just, none of those things are needed. I mean, so you have to you have to know everything about the game to be able to add these things in, because if you just follow the instructions, you're going to break your game and you're going to break your map and you're going to be confused and you don't know what you're doing. So you kind of have to, like, I personally know because I've done this dozens of times, but like all of these things, windrow, forage harvester, that we need all of these. And they're not here. Shovel. Here. Right? And then, but I don't need all this mint stuff. Get rid of that. Forage harvester. That's fine. I don't need this. Don't need this. This is all base game stuff. I don't need to repeat what's already in the base game. Base game knows about the base game. You don't need to tell it how to do its job already. You just need to tell it what you're adding. All right. Windrow, forage wagon. So a forage wagon can pick up alfalfa. A silage trailer can pick up alfalfa. I don't know what a silage trailer is, but whatever. A forage harvester can pick up alfalfa. Pick it up in a shovel. I can pick it up with a fork and store it in a farm silo. I can't store it in a farm silo, but we also have dry maize, so we're kind of combining those two things. And then the other thing is you also need a sound. Like, we can just do the grain small fill. We need a sound for it. Technically, we want to use the grass fill sound. So as you can see here, he put the thing for the grass fill sound. And again, we're just going to copy that. We're going to paste it here. And it's done wrong. So this needs to be fill type sounds. You always need the plural first and then the singular. That's how these things work. So that was done wrong by whoever made this map. That's fine. We're fixing it. And then we don't need all this mint and all that kind of stuff. We don't need any of it. Blah, blah, blah. We don't need all these things because they don't exist. We don't need them now. Done. So dry maize is going to make the sound of grain filling, and windrow and dry alfalfa will make the grass filling. So we've done the fill type categories, and we've set those fill type categories up. Okay, so we had to, but we did have to kind of parse what's here in the instructions from Antler and actually make sense of them, because they don't necessarily make sense. So we're done with that. We're done with fill types. done with fruit types. Wait, hold on. We might not be done with fruit types. Let me double check. And the game will tell you if you're not. We didn't do the fruit type converters. Okay. So we did fill type categories and sounds. Fruit type categories. We did that. We missed a step. Fruit type converters. Right. Okay. That's another thing for our checklist, which is right here. So forage harvester, again, we have a forage harvester. It will convert when the forage harvester is doing a pickup. Now we're converting from alfalfa to chaff, right? Which is the way we simplified it from a forage harvester perspective. So if the forage harvester touches it, whether it's being picked up or being cut, it's just going to convert it to chaff, which is what we want. The mower is the next one. The mower, if a mower touches it, we want it to convert not to grass windrow, to alfalfa windrow. We don't want it to convert to grass. That's silly. That doesn't make sense. That's not how we play the game. We want it to actually be its own crop, right? And then the combine mower, we can also set this up for the combine mower. That's something I like to do. We can do that later. That's a kind of an extra to get you to, so that you can use that big, huge 13-meter MacDon header on a custom crop. Well, we'd have to set that up here, and we'll set it up now just for funsies. But we can just do this alfalfa to alfalfa windrow, and now I can combine mow alfalfa. I actually also, this is my change that I make to almost all maps, is I want to also combine mow grass. This is for my map. This is the way I want it. I want to actually use that big, huge header, not just the mower header, because the mower classifies as a mower, but as a combine mower, I want to be able to cut. I want to use the big, huge threshing style header on grass. So I'm going to change this one right here to that. And so fruit type converters, we've done that. The next thing is density map height types. Now, what is a density map height types? A lot of people don't understand what that is. And it's something that the community is not sure on. And there's issues with the density map height types, and we're going to try to fix them. So we're going to close fruit types. We're done with that. We can close the map, that right there. We can close we can definitely close the i3D. We don't need that. And we're going to go to our configurations. So density map height types. So our map file says density map height types right here. File name, map config density map height types. You want to define your custom density map height types, or else the game doesn't know about them. So density map height types is when you can tip something onto the ground. When I mean tip something onto the ground, I mean dump it from a trailer into a pile on the ground, or output that thing from a machine of some kind into something that's on the ground on top of the dirt, right? Or whatever pattern is on there. It doesn't matter. So basically anything you want to mow where it actually shows up as a windrow, anything that can be a windrow has to have a density map height type. If you don't, it won't show up on the ground. It'll just be invisible. So if you add a crop and you're like, I'm mowing it, but it's not showing up, it doesn't exist. This is why. And so as you can see, this map does not have the density map height type for alfalfa. And what we want in here is not alfalfa, but alfalfa windrow and dry alfalfa windrow. Luckily, Antler's configuration has these already set. So we're going to copy that, paste, and that's pretty much, we're done. What some of these numbers mean, and just so you know, these are basically how it looks. These are the same settings for grass. The one thing that you can change, and it does affect how the stuff shows up on the ground, is the max surface angle. So the max surface angle is, if you think of a windrow, you think of a windrow as a pile on the ground. And if you have the angle set to a low number, so max surface angle 10, your windrow will be like this. So you get really, really, really wide windrows, and it'll spread out, and it'll be hard to pick up because it's so wide. So what you want is, you want the angle of that pile that gets put out by the mower to be taller so that it stays tighter. If you have a map where every windrow on the map is super wide, that's why it's this. It's the height, right? And so I like to have these up set up at 40, not 35. That's just a personal preference. And then the other one here, right, is the fill to ground scale. Now this is actually a very critical number. We're going to leave it like this, but here's what it means, and here's how it affects your game. The fill to ground scale means it's a multiplier. If I generate 1 liter of this fill type of alfalfa windrow based off of the configurations that are coming from Antler, if I generate 1 liter on the ground, it's going to show me physically on the ground 8 liters. You think, oh, well, that just means it's basically, it makes, what it does is it makes the windrows bigger than huge, right? If you set this to but something like chaff is set to 1. And the reason is when you dump it out of a trailer, you don't want it to stack up super high. You want it to stay down low because you're going to end up compacting it. So most things like crops, wheat and whatnot, their density map height types are set to 1 or something like that. And we can show you that. Right? If I come in here for, this is another map, but if we look, the density map height type for something like rye is set to 1. Fill to ground scale 1. It does not multiply it when it goes onto the ground. But things like alfalfa and dry alfalfa, they do multiply basically so that you see the windrows and they become visually easier to pick up, and they become more engaging to the player because more shows up on the ground than is technically there. But that makes picking it up with a forage harvester or a pickup wagon or a baler kind of more enjoyable because you have these big rows you can follow. But if it was just set to 1, you'd have these little teeny tiny minuscule rows and it'd be kind of boring. And so that's why these multipliers are here. Now you can adjust these multipliers. Right now I have mine on my other version of the map set to 6 and 7. And if we go back to what we're editing here, Antler has it set to 8 and 6. I don't like that, so I'm going to change it back to 6 and 7, which actually I'm going to set them both to 6, which means that whether I have alfalfa or I have dry alfalfa, it's always showing 6 times as much on the ground. Now, if I find that when I'm playing, those windrows are too tall, to a point where it causes the baler to get messed up, or it causes when I drive over it, it's just super annoying, I'm going to change those numbers down. And you can change them down even after creating a save game. And it's just going to change the scale in which, when it gets dumped to the ground, how much shows up, how big those windrows are, whether they're a little teeny tiny like this, or they get bigger, right? It's just how much shows up on the ground. So the fill to ground scale is the scale, which is a multiplier of how much goes to the ground. So if I put 1,000 liters on the ground, it's going to show the equivalent of 6,000 liters. But that's what creates the big bulky windrows. If you wanted to have much smaller windrows, set these numbers lower. I've played with them on other maps as low as like 4 or 5, and it creates some nice tight windrows, which means that they don't spread out very much. Even if you have like a 13-meter wide cut path, or you're windrowing with a 15-meter windrow and it bulks it into a windrow, and that windrow is still able to be picked up in a single pass with a baler or a pickup wagon, right? If the multiplier is too high on this, you'll create windrows that are too big for a baler and you have to take 2 passes. So that's kind of how you measure it. And what your scale should be If they end up being too big, just lower these numbers. It's not a big deal. It doesn't change anything, but that's what the fill to ground scale is and how you adjust it. If you remember my map tour from 2-3 weeks ago when we did Geistal, I created chaff windrow. I created my own density map height type for chaff windrow, right? Kind of like this. And this is essentially what I did. And then I changed the fill to ground scale to 4. Right? I think it was 4 or 4.5 or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was, but basically I created, because chaff has a fill to ground scale of 1, which is what you dump into bunker silos. But when it's on the ground as a windrow, I wanted it to be bigger, kind of like the regular windrows. And so that's what I did on that other map when I was editing things around and messing around and trying to make it work. So now we've added the density map height types. So there's 2 things you need. One, you need this line in your map.xml, which says use this custom configuration file. And then you need that custom configuration file set properly. We can leave that there, blah, blah, blah. Then the last part is allows smoothing. Allows smoothing means if you drive over it, does it compress? The only thing in the base game that allows smoothing is chaff. And basically that's how chaff works when it allows you to compress it. So if you allow smoothing, it will allow kind of if you think about it like your smoothing tool when you're painting, it's the same kind of thing. That's what you're doing when you're compressing chaff. You're smoothing it out and making it nice. We're going to say, no, we're not going to do allow smoothing. That's totally fine. And at that point, we've caught up and we've done kind of everything that is in the documentation from Antler, but we're missing a few things. We're missing things that are actually very important. And so what those things are is there's 2 things that are very important in my mind. They're totally missing from the Antler 22's instructions, which are bales and effects. Nope. Effects, if you try to bale Alfalfa, it won't work. It just literally won't work. You'll get black bales. And you'll also get tons of errors in your log if you don't add the effects properly. Bales and effects are super important. Now, let's go ahead and create the right bales and right effects. You can, most of the time, you can do this by copying and pasting, which is what we're going to do. So we're going to go close those. And we're going to do this. We're going to copy from an existing file that we know what it looks like, but that's fine. So here we are in our map, config, foliage, blah, 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 blah. So all of this stuff is our configuration for our map. But the one thing we don't have is bales, right? So let's add a folder for bales. We need bales. And we're going to add a folder for effects. We need effects. So when you're harvesting alfalfa with a mower, we need the game to have enough. We can do bales first. We need the bales to look like actual bales, because right now, if we mowed them, they wouldn't look like anything. They'd be black. And I guess we can show you what that looks like. And then we can fix it. So we haven't gone into the game in a while. We've done a lot of coding. Let's make sure we're saved. And now let's load into the game and see what happens. What has happened with all of the things that we've changed or added or fixed or whatever, what have you? How has that affected the game? Technically, you could have tested into the game after every one of the steps that we just did. That's fine. And if you're new to modding, I would recommend that. I'm not new to modding, so I can jump through a bunch of steps and know that they're going to work because I've done them dozens of times. And while the game's loading, you can click your tilde key and see and make sure that you're not getting too many errors in the map. And all of these, anything that's a warning or an error, you should be fixing. But as we can see here, if we jump over our fence, we don't need that open. We walk up to the crop. It still looks like alfalfa. Great. So now we're going to go to the store. I like to do it as, I like to just, if I'm just testing, I'm not going to do like a really stupid small thing. I'm going to get the biggest mower there's possible. So I'm just going to get this. I'm going to lease it. Yes. Okay. We're going to need a square baler. Lease. Yes. To test bales. We're gonna need a big baler. Lease. Yes. Okay. We're gonna need a round baler. And we need a round baler that actually makes all of the bale sizes. So we're gonna have to use this one. Right? Lease. Yes. And then we're going to have to get some tractors for each of those things. We'll do this. Lease. Yes, that's for the small baler. And then we need medium size to large for the... We'll do this. Yes. Lease. Yes, thank you. We'll do that for the big baler. And then what was the last thing we did? A round baler. We had a round baler. It was a red round baler. So we'll do... I don't use this one very often. This one has a cool dark color. Go there. Lease. Yes. Okay. This is all the stuff you need for testing. Question: how difficult is cold alfalfa to meet in silage by wrapping or turning in chaff in a bunker? We will do that 100% today. We are doing that. It will be done. I'll show you. It's part of this process. To me, if you can't wrap silage, and turn it into, if you can't wrap alfalfa and turn it into silage, what's the point, right? You make the most money off of silage anyways. Why would you ever want to not do that? So we will do that. That's as far as bales when we're talking about wrapping bales. And then as far as putting it into a bunker silo for chaff, we already did that, Farmer Donkey. And if you remember, when we were doing the configuration for fill types, what we've set it up is for when we pick it up, when you pick it up in a pickup header, the pickup header is going to convert it to chaff directly. So if I'm using a pickup header or a cutter, like a cutter, we're going to convert it to chaff right away. That's one part of it. So that one will automatically work. You already have chaff, which means you can put in a bunker silo. The other one is a forage wagon, because the forage wagon will actually pick up alfalfa or dry alfalfa. And we need to be able to add that to the bunker silos for the to work in the bunker silos. Now we will do that, but we're not going to do that now. So we will get there. That is a little bit trickier, but I'll show you how. Anyways, first of all, let's tile through our machines. And what field is this? It's fields 11. It's field 11. So GS teleport 11. Now I have turned off crop destruction on this save. That's a long way to drive for all of this equipment, so I'm not going to do that. But let's start the process. We need some windrows to be able to pick up with balers and stuff like that. So I don't have access to this land. Okay. GS Farmland by all. Thank you. Now I have access. Okay, see how we're getting errors? Do you guys see those errors that are being generated? Because there's no effects. That's why you need to add effects. So we've done it the way Antler said to do it, and you would literally be generating effects non-stop while you're playing the game, right? That doesn't make sense. That's kind of dumb. Why would you want errors? I don't want errors. I want to just play the game. So if you don't do effects, that's what happens. You get these errors constantly for every mower or pickup wagon or whatever. All of those things just don't happen. And as you can see, there's no animation underneath the mower when it's dropping the alfalfa. And the reason is that there's no effect. There's no effect behind the mower because we didn't actually add those. And so that's one thing we definitely need to add. And that's why the effects, you want to do the effects. Right? So we're going to come here, yada, yada, yada. And there's effects for the balers. There's effects for mowers. There's effects for everything, right? So there, turn that off. Okay. We're going to go to the Massey and bring the Massey over with the baby baler. Aw, so cute, baby bales. And we're going to go to, whoops, 14. 14 is the cornfield that's right next to the alfalfa field. But that makes sense from a, it's close enough. So I'm going to park these balers all over here when we start doing bales. All right. Actually, we're going to do unfold, turn on, lower down. Let's create a bale. Now, as you can see, again, no motion effects. It's not picking, the baler's not picking it up. The baler's not even like accepting it. Like that's, these are things we have to fix. So cannot fail to create bale because there's no bale found. I can't create a bale because it doesn't know what bales are, right? We don't know what alfalfa bales look like. So the game can't create an alfalfa bale. So that's dumb. We have to fix that. Right, so leave that there. Tab over to this Dutes. Teleport. And right now we're just giving ourselves the things we need to test this properly. And then we'll hit save. And then when we come back in the map, after we add the effects and or the bales, we will be able to test everything, make sure it works. And we'll get the McCormick. And this is Dust Bunny's favorite tractor. And so if we followed Antler's instructions, unfortunately, they're just not complete. I would love to see them be complete, but we're trying. What we're trying to do today is to actually complete them. But if all we followed was Antler's instructions and we didn't know what we were doing, we would be left with a map that doesn't work with alfalfa that can be cut and harvested, but it can't be picked up. It can't be anything else. Like all of those things wouldn't work. And then technically, we also should get a. Let's get this one because I can make it black. I like the bigger wheels. Lease. Yes. Okay. And then technically we should also be testing the forage wagon because we have that forage wagon chaff thing. Lease. GS money add blah 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 blah. Billions of dollars. Lease. Yes. Okay. And then we need a header. And we technically would need both a pickup header and a regular cutter header. But we'll just get the cutter header for now. We'll do the pickup header later. Yeah. It's funny. I did the same thing on Known Kansas Boy, and I was sitting there screaming at the screen. I'm like, this doesn't look right. You're not. I mean, I think he actually knows the full process. He just didn't explain the full process. And I think there's a little bit of assumption happening where we're assuming that, you know, when someone tries to add a crop to a map, that they know what they're doing. And in all honesty, if you're not doing all of these steps, you might not know what you're doing if you're a new map maker. And I've had multiple map makers reach out to me being like, I don't know how to add this crop. I follow the instructions, but it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? And I'm like, well, the instructions are not necessarily, they're wrong. They're incomplete. Anyways, save. So we have all the stuff to test, or most of the stuff to test. We should technically to be testing with a forage wagon as well. And the combine mower and the pickup header, but we'll test that stuff later. Anyways. So we have a crop. It's on the ground. We can cut it. Actually, and let's look at it. Let's look at the so as you can see this is right here. So it's showing as having little purple flowers in it. So the texture is good. And you can see how big the windrows are. This is because of that multiplier. If we change that multiplier to be smaller, then these would be smaller. But remember, the Big M is probably one of the biggest mowers in the game, which is going to create this size windrow. This size windrow to me is okay. It's not too big. It's not too small. I think it's just about right. But we could change it to be something else. So we do have windrows. We do have windrows textures. Now, there is other textures that are available, and that's to be clear. There is like a prefab map that's out there that has alfalfa and clover and triticale and rye and blah, blah, blah. And every map that's been released in the recent past couple of months has had all of those crops. And those textures are different than these textures. And I personally like those other textures a little bit better. And those are the ones I'm using on my map. So we can actually show you the difference between those at some point, maybe today. But for now, let's get bales working. And by the way, I quit like that. So I go into the console and I type the word quit because it goes directly to my desktop. If I just quit through the normal menu, it takes me to the regular splash screen menu and actually loads that splash screen menu, which takes time. And then you have to hit click and quit again. And then it takes time to actually quit the game. I prefer to just get all the way out. That's why I do it that way. So here we go. So we have the fill types, we have the pickup header, we have pickup header grain, we have all this stuff set up. The next thing to do is bales. Now we don't have anything in our bales folder. Okay, so what are bales supposed to look like? Let's look and find out. So how do I, if you don't know what's supposed to be for bales, what the configuration for bales is, how would you find out? Okay, well let's drill through it and how we find out. If we go into your map knows, so the map has to define bales. As you see where it says bales, data, map bales. Okay, let's look at that. Let's look at the data folder for map bales. So I'm going to go open folder, and I'm going to go data, because I have it bookmarked. And I have too many things open. I don't need this stuff open. It's fine. Let's search because I don't want to look for it. Bales.mapbales.xml, right? This says maps data maps map bales. This file is in maps map bales. That's whatever it is. That's what should be here, right? Perfect. And as you can see, this file defines what the bales should look like. Who knew? So what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to copy. Copy this file. I'm going to switch back over to my other editor. I'm going to go to my config. I'm gonna hit paste. I'm gonna rename it, take away the maps underscore bales. And so now I have my own bale configuration file, which is what I want. And now I should also update this line to point to my configuration file. There we go. Now what if I were to load the map? I would be loading from my configuration file. But what I've done so far is basically just copied what's in the base game, because the base game is the same, right? I'm already loading from these files, and this is all what's in the base game, and this is all the stuff that's in the base game. All I need are... I need all this stuff. This stuff all has to be there, but the base game already knows about all this stuff. So my version of this file doesn't need to have in it the information that's already in the base game. This is one thing that map makers is a mistake that a lot of map makers make their first time. They think that if they're going to be changing something that's in the data directory in the base game, that they have to have everything that's in the data directory also, because they have to tell the game how to do that stuff. But the game is going to automatically load that information anyways. You only have to tell it about what's new. And what I mean by that is, if we go back to the data directory here, we look at bales. We have two folders of bales. Round bales are first. Let's look at round bales. Actually, I'm looking at the wrong folder. Sorry about that. So this is all the stuff that's in the data directory. I don't need any of that stuff. None of that matters to me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add in configurations that matter to me. So let's say I want to add in round bales, right? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to say map, copy, paste. So I want it to load from my configuration files round bales that I'm telling it to load. Now I don't need to replicate the round bales that are already there. They're already there. That doesn't matter. All I need to specify is the ones that I'm already adding. And technically, I don't think this file needs to have any of this. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's, but we can test it. I think I should be able to just comment all that out, and I'd still be able to have cotton square bales because the game already knows about it. But we can test that. I'm going to comment it out for now. We can uncomment it if it doesn't work. I could be wrong. So we need a new folder here, round bales. And we need a new folder here, square bales, right? Round bales, square bales, perfect. And then we need an XML file for round bales in round bales. So we need all those XML files. And then folders, each one has a folder. So new folder, 125, copy, new folder, 150, new folder, 180, right? Round bale 125, 150, 180. And then of course we have to do the same thing over here. 120, square bale, copy, 120. You have to do this. This is important because if you don't, we're not defining bales. We don't know what those bales look like, which means we won't be able to bale that crop. 220, new folder, 240. Okay, so now we have all of the folders that we need for round bales and square bales. We will go through and create each one. And now if I want, how do I create those? If I go back to the data directory, again, we're using the data directory as our source of truth. We're going to look at round bales and square bales. So, okay, round bale 125. I'm going to need this file, right? And I'm going to need the round bale 125. No, I'm not. So all I'm going to need is this XML file. So I'm going to copy that XML file there. I'll switch over to where I'm editing. Paste. Round bale 125. This file says I'm going to use the data objects file for the round bale. Great. Awesome. Oh, you do, Phil? I didn't know that. Maybe I've been doing it wrong this whole time. That's totally possible. So this file says the round bale 125. We're going to use the data object round bale 25. All of this stuff is all default. It's always there. I'm not going to touch any of it. The fill types that I care about, I'm just going to go ahead and edit things. And I don't need any of these other things. I don't need them because the base game already knows about them. So if I'm defining a round bale for alfalfa, I don't need to define the round bales for grass already. They're already defined. If you remember in our bales file, everything here is already there. All we're doing is what we're adding. Remember that. You don't need to redefine everything. You just need to define what's new. So technically, I don't even think this stuff is all needed. I really don't think so, but I'm going to leave it there for now. We can try commenting it out and doing it. McGarrett, no. We'll do effects next. That's a whole nother process. The bales and effects are actually the two hardest processes, but we'll talk about those as we do them. But first we're going to do bales. So alfalfa, alfal, I always feel like I'm spelling alfalfa wrong. I don't know why. Okay, so alfalfa windrow and dry alfalfa windrow. I've used grass windrow and dry alfalfa windrow specifically so that I can say, I can use the configurations for grass as what I'm going to use as my benchmark for alfalfa. Now, what's needed here? This is the critical part, right? What's needed? I need a diffuse map, a normal map, an alfalfa map, an alpha map, a bale normal, and a fermenting setting. This is what allows them to ferment into silage. If I support wrapping equals true, I can ferment it into silage automatically and requires wrapping equals true. Technically, you could say it supports wrapping and then requires wrapping false, and it'll just turn into silage instantaneously, which is another way of doing it. Or I could say alfalfa, I could leave this configuration here and I could set the time to 0 and it'll instantly turn into silage. That's how you do that. So, or you could just set it to 0.1, right? And it'll just turn to silage, but it'll take an hour instead of a day. So the time here, I believe, is the measurement is a day. How many days? But I'm not sure. But I believe that's what we could do. We could test it out. Anyways, all we need here when we're defining a new bale, we don't need these. These are all common. These lines are all common. They need to be here, but we don't actually need a file for it. But what we do need is a specific file for this alfalfa diffuse. We need an alfalfa diffuse for a bale. Now, what does this file even look like? So what type of file do I need? So let's go to the data directory. Let's go. Where am I? Why is that here? What? Open an external app. There's a bale for alfalfa? Oh, alpha. I thought that said alfalfa. I was like, why is that? That's not supposed to be there. It's the alpha layer. Okay, whatever. Open an external app. Grass diffuse. We're going to open that up in GIMP. And so we can see what it looks like. Right? Okay. Okay. This is the alpha layer, not alfalfa. Alpha. We don't need to do anything with that. Open an external app. This is what the alfalfa file looks like. So a round bale for alfalfa for grass looks like this, right? It is very close. It's like 2 letters off. I was like, I don't understand. Why is this here? This is what this needs to look like. And so what we could do is we could spend hours and hours and hours trying to make this look like the same crop that we were just editing. I don't have time for that. I'm just going to steal it from another map. So I'm going to take this file, which is the only file we need, which is how it works, and I'm going to get it from another map. So we have another map already open. I'm going to come in here to round bales, round bale 125, and that one right there. Alfalfa is the only one we need, and alfalfa hay. So we need those two. So copy. I'm going to copy these from another place that I use them, and I'll open them up to show you what they look like. And we're going to paste here. So we have round bale, alfalfa 125 diffuse. So no round bale 125 capital A alfalfa diffuse. So round bale 125 alfalfa diffuse. And so this, and then this should say alfalfa hay. And so we can look at these files also in that external app and compare, right? What did the person who made these do? Right? This is what alfalfa in a round bale looks like. Now, round bales, because they have the net wrap around them, you don't really see much color. You don't see the purplish colors, right? And this one right here is, it's okay. If we look at another, let's see if, I'm not sure if I like that. I want it to look more like alfalfa. So let's go look at, where am I going to look? Let's see if the one we toured last week. Where's Geistal? Here. Geistal. Hello, everyone. Whoever just jumped in. We're going to bales, round bale 125, fill types. This is the one from Geistal. So if we open this file, open with GIMP. Okay. This is the one from Geistal, which I like. I like how it has the flowers in it. This I like a lot. So let's use that one instead. Because this is the one that I was using on Montana. And this is the one that has on Geistal, which has the flowers. So let's use that one because I like that one better. So instead of just copying from there, we're going to go like this. Go to this, 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 this. Right? And we're going to copy these files over. So this and that, copy. And we're not going to be able to do it there, so we have to do it in a file window. Okay. It's fine. What are we doing? Edit. Valchi. Map. Bales. Round bales. 125. Yeah, I like the Valchi ones better. So we're going to use those. Copy. And then we're going to go 150. And we're going to have to do this for all of them, unfortunately. Copy. We can save ourselves some effort by copying this file over too while we're at it. Round bells 180. Copy round bells, square bells. Copy alfalfa. Whoops. Try alfalfa. Copy. The square bills files. Yeah. And you could also, if you, yeah, you could use that, or you could use the ones from Polygyny if you wanted to borrow the ones from Polygyny, whatever you want, especially if it's for your own stuff. Now, if I was actually using these files for a map that I'm going to release to ModHub, you need to ask for permission, especially if like Polygyny's files look different. If it's not something that's already released as like a prefab. So if I use the ones from Guystyle, those are the same ones from the prefab. So if I could use those, they're from the prefab. I don't need to actually ask for permission. But if I take the ones from MA7, you technically have to ask MA7 if it's okay to use their textures. I don't know if they'd say yes or no. I'm assuming they would say yes. But technically, to do it right, you have to ask. And that's one thing that a lot of new modders assume that they don't have to do, but you definitely have to do. Copy. 220. Square bells 220. Fill types. Now we're not doing the other ones because these are just specific to that map. I'm just using that one as an example of I like the textures here. Right? So I'm just going to copy from there's textures. Okay. We're done with that. Done with that. So now let's look in our folder and see what we have. We have round bale 125. We have alfalfa 125 and dry alfalfa. So the name's changed. And I can just rename, copy, close this, paste. Round bale 125. And this is dry alfalfa 125. And then the path is map. So map bales, round bales, dry alfalfa 125. So I'm only defining the alfalfa and dry alfalfa. Now I'm also asking them you can also define custom capacities and masses. So you can play with the custom capacities and masses if you want. Personally, I think grass bales are fine as a copy. I think alfalfa is pretty much the same crop as grass from my perspective. So I typically just use those. And so we're going to copy this. And again, this is somebody else wrote this file and they're doing exactly the same as I did it, where they're only including what they need to include. This one has a lot of other stuff. Actually, this one is including everything, so which is interesting. I wouldn't do that. We'll see if it's needed. I don't think it's needed actually. So let's just include what we need, which is alfalfa, dry alfalfa. And as you can see, they're doing the same thing. Data, objects, bales. They're using all the stuff from the data directory, but they are referencing their own file, their own files for just the diffuse map. And that's totally fine. And that's great. And again, we support wrapping equals true. We're moving it to silage on that Guystyle map. That one is customized so they actually have an alfalfa fermented state. We're not doing that on this map, but that's essentially what we're doing. So we have to go through and edit all these files. It's a pretty quick edit. Boop. Boop. Nope. I don't want it there because that's not where the file is. Just make sure that these paths here match the paths you've created here in your own folder structure. I didn't make a fill types folder for each fill type. I just wanted it all in one directory. To me, that's easier to see, easier to manage, easier to understand where stuff is. But it's up to you, however you want to do it. So we did round bales. Let's do square bales quick. Square bale 120. Again, we only want alfalfa and dry alfalfa. We don't need any of this other stuff because those are all the base game stuff. We don't need to redefine what's already in the base game. And supports wrapping equals false for the small bales because the wrappers don't support the small bales. So we're just gonna leave that alone. Do that. And then get rid of this. Alfalfa diffused, dry alfalfa diffused. Yes, yes. Perfect. Save. Done with that one. Packed square bale. Don't need that. Put them in the same order. I can't stand when people don't put things in the same order. It drives me nuts. This is the packed bales, the big packed bales. Let's open up all these at the same time so we can edit them all at once. Square bale 180, square bale 220, square bale 240. So much to do. And again, I'm editing someone else's files, so I'm editing them to my standards, and removing things that I don't think need to be there. And I think the reason their files have them there is because in their bales file, they're replacing round bale 125 with their own file for round bale 25. But technically the way the game works is you can actually add more bale configurations and it just adds them onto the stack. And so if you only specify the new stuff, then I can have them separate, and which means that I can take the same configuration we did for this map and put it on any other map and it'll all work. So it'll work except for as long as the file folders are the same paths and stuff. Again, this is the longest and tedious part of the alfalfa adding process because there's so many files to edit and you have to make sure you edit all of them the same. Again, some of these have alfalfa first and some of them have the dry type first. It's like, I don't understand. Whoops. No. This editor allows me to edit 2 lines at the same time as long as those lines are the same, which is what I'm doing to be able to do this fast. Boop. Clover, 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 clover. Boop, 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 boop. Okay. And then, whoops. I wasn't editing both lines at once. Save. Okay, we're done. So we've added all the bales. So we added the bales here. This file says, no, use this bale configuration for the bales. Our bale configuration says, oh no, we only want square bale configurations. Right? We only want the ones we created. And whoops. This map bales, square bale number, the configuration files directly in those folders, blah, blah, blah. So we're only telling the map the stuff we added, which means that regular bales should still work. But these should still work as long as we don't include them. But if we go to the game and I can't create a freaking straw bale, then we know we need to add this stuff back in, and it's just commenting out this file without editing every file again. Because this, and we can put a comment in the file and just to remind ourselves. Right? And these are all the custom bales for alfalfa. And we could then use this on another map if we wanted to by just taking this whole folder structure and then this one line that gets added here, and we're golden, right? It would be super easy. But let's check this out and see if we can actually create bales now, because again, the effects are still not going to work, but let's make sure we can create bales. And the quickest way to create bales is actually not to use a baler. The quickest way to create bales is to just spawn them. We obviously want to make sure the balers work, and we'll do that next. But this go round, when we go in right now, we're just going to spawn them. So career, alfalfa. Now, the other thing to remember as we've gone through this whole process, we're still on an existing save game. We've changed how alfalfa works. We've added bales. We've added density map height types. We've added fill types. We've added fruit types. We've added fruit type conversions. We've added all of those stuff from our checklist, all on an existing save game. That's key. And that's the thing somebody to remember is when you add things to a map, sometimes you need a new save game, but most of the times you don't. Now, the reason that we could do it on an existing save game is because alfalfa was already on the map. It had already been added to the map.i3d file, which means the map knows about it. Because when you save, when the map knows about it, if you were adding it through, we went through that process a little while ago. If you save, the map will change its data directory files. And if that save happens where the data directory files change, like your info layer files that are in your data directory, if that changes, you need a new save, and it won't work with existing saves. But since that already existed for me, I didn't need to do that. So that's why we were able to use an existing save. Where am I? I'm on a different farm. What is this? That's a cool looking root crop storage. Apparently it's weird because this guy added root crop storages on all the maps, but he didn't actually, there's no root crops. Like the root crops don't actually, we added root crop storage, but there's a line in the map. I'll show you guys because it's very funny. I've never seen this line before, but apparently it works. I don't know if it works actually, but if we look at the mod desk, which is how the file is defined, he has this thing, disable field missions, right? I don't know that this works. I've never seen this before, but basically he disabled carrot, parsnip, beetroot, cotton, sugarcane, green bean, pea, and spinach from field missions. So I don't understand why you would do that, or if this actually works. But the way he got these crops not to show up, I believe, is from, if we look back at our config, we go to fruit types. See how he has, yeah, they're just not showing up for field missions. And I don't know if he has we look at our fields. Yeah, he's defining what crops he wants on everywhere he has alfalfa, maize, wheat, alfalfa. But if you notice, maybe that works. Maybe that's how you do it. Because if you notice, none of the extra fields that he isn't specifying, none of the extra fields have root crops in them. And I can't stand root crops, so I'm wondering if that's actually how you do it. If it is, I learned something new today, which is awesome. I love learning new things. So if that actually works, that's pretty cool. Anyways, bales. Where are we? Let's jump back to our farm. Visit. Okay. Let's come in here. I'm going to paint my driveway because to get rid of this tall grass, it's kind of annoying. We're just going to do... This texture's fun. That's a cool texture. I like these kind of patterned tiles textures. That looks good. Anyways, so we can spawn in bales just by coming in here and doing GS bale add and then hitting enter, and it's going to give you an error. It's going to say, oh no, you can't do this without actually specifying. And now here's the thing, and we actually just learned something. I just learned something right now. I did, and it says available bale types. Now, if you look, the only two bale types that are available in the game right now are alfalfa windrow and dry alfalfa, which are the ones we added. What that means, and again, we're testing, we're trying to figure it out. That means that if I comment this stuff out and I don't include the stuff from the base game, it won't include it by default. Now, this is inconsistent because the base game does this in certain places and not does it in certain places. But I'm not going to claim that Giants is consistent about how they do anything. So we're going to uncomment this. So now this is base game, and we don't need the spaces here. And we'll put a comment in here. Base game, don't comment out, and then custom bales for alfalfa. So we need that. So right now I can spawn the alfalfa bales. So I can do alfalfa windrow false 1.2 0.9 2.2, and it will create an alfalfa square bale, right? And it just creates it, right? So we're going to go in here and hit save. Now you said that, what'd you do? Somebody said that they go in the menu and they hit Q. Oh, I don't have to type the whole word quit. I can just type the single letter Q. That's awesome. Hot tip. Thank you. Who said that above? Who says they just type Q and it quits? Phil. What's that? Yes. No, I have some time off from work. I decided to take the day off from work.
You took the day off?
That was Phil up there who said that. Perfect. All right, let's do the next thing. The next thing, so that doesn't work. So we comment out, we hit save. Let's go back in. Come on, game. Alfalfa. Start. Okay. I don't know why. I think it's because I bought this property and I'm not going to be able to sell it now because there's placeables on it. So I'm going to have to keep jumping. That's annoying. Whatever. Anyways, we have our alfalfa bale we spawned earlier. Let's move over. And then if we do GS bale add, it'll tell us the bale's available. What? Hi.
I could come up here and yell penis or vagina whenever I wanted because it's not working.
You're hilarious.
Yeah.
Love you.
Thank you. Love you.
If I just do GS bail add, it adds. All of our bales work. We could do the same thing for the dry alfalfa bales. Thank you very much, Unknown Kensploy. But we could do the same thing for the dry alfalfa bales, but we've created all the bales and we can see that we're baling and that works. We're still getting errors. And we could use the balers to bail this stuff, but we don't really need to. What we need to do now is fix the effects. So this works. Save. Yep. Q, enter. Phil, I love you. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to type quit fast and then misspelled it because, you know, whatever, and then had to fix it, and that just irritates me. So all I have to do is that's one letter now and I'm good. Perfect. All right, bales done. Okay, we're done with bales. We fixed the bales. We now have alfalfa bales, which is great. The next thing to do is effects, or motion path effects. As of right now, the game is referring to a motion path effect file that's in the base game. So let's go look at what that file. And again, we're doing the same process. Again, I say these things over and over, but like we keep doing the same thing over and over. But the reason, there's a lot of this that happens as part of map making where you are doing the same thing over and over and over. But that's just how it is. Where's the effects file? Where to say it was? Data effects, motion path effects. Data effects. Here's all the effects. Motion path effects. Copy. We need our own effects file. Come over here. We created a folder for effects, didn't we? Map effects, paste, motion path effects. I'm assuming it's gonna work the same way as Bales, where we can't remove the ones that are here. We have to add our own. Right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do that. And the effects that we're gonna need for all the stuff to work, I'm going to take it from my other map because I already did all the work, the grunt work to figure it all out. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to go custom effects for the map, right? And we need that. These are the ones that we need. Edit them all. So we're going to need chopper, cutter, mower, pickup, tedder, and windrower. We're gonna need all of those effects. Now, I'll go through showing you what they look like. I'm not gonna go through creating them all because these took hours and hours and hours of work to create. So we are going to copy directly from my other game save or my other map. They do take a significant amount of time, but I will explain all of them as we do them, right? So let's go in here to where are we going? Big sky, big dreams. We want the Montana map that we're playing on. No, we don't want that one. We want fill planes, map US, effects. And I want all of this. No, I don't want that. I don't want that. Don't want that. Don't want that. Copy. And we're going to put it here in the effects folder. And I'll go through and explain each and every piece of it. Effects, paste. Skip this file. Okay, so what we've done is we created the effects, and we're going to have to remove some of them because we also have clover and corn straw and soybean straw in these effects. But they work, so that's all that matters. What is in this file? Let's go back to here and look. So we have data effects. We have effects chopper, effects windrower, cutter, all the three cutters, mower, pickup, tedder, windrower. So chopper, we go to chopper effects. This is for chopping. Chopper is for spreading straw at the end of from the end of the harvester. Chafer is for spreading it from the sides, and drop is for dropping it on the ground. And so this is only for harvesters. So as you can see, this is not for any of the crops that we need, so we don't need this. So delete. Again, I'm copying from another game, but the other game has a lot of custom maps, so we can slim it down. Cutter. Cutter effects. So here we have the motion path effects, and again, if you look, what's defined in this file is all of the stuff, but you really only need what's custom. So we don't need linseed, we don't need hemp, right? And so what we're defining custom, if we look at it, so for grass, when it's big, we need a cutter effect for both cutter and cutter forage. So whether it's cutting it or it's cutting it and picking it up. And then we're basically copying what's there for grass. So all we're doing is adding in alfalfa to what's already there. So we're just basically saying, use the same effects for grass use the same effects for alfalfa as you use for grass. So that's all I'm doing. Done. That's literally it. What we will need though is we do need these files here. We need those files to be local. So we would need to update this path. Should just be map instead of map US. And we've already have those i3D files here. They need to be local because I have made edits to them slightly. The one thing I have made edits to it is this, which is adding the 3242 one, which adds in the effect that you need for the MacDon big header. And so that's not normally there, and that's the only reason why I have my own custom effects files, which are copies of the base game ones with little things added. So cutter effects is done. Cutter fruit effects. This one is for hemp, so we don't need that. Delete. Cutter threshing effects, also for hemp. Don't need that. Delete. And then we can go back here. We don't need either of these. Right? We're limiting what we need now. I think everything else we need. Mower. So the mower effects, you need to have all of the crops you're adding. I'm going to go safe here and leave grass and dry grass and all kind of stuff in here. Alfalfa, windrow. I don't think they need to be here. Like dry alfalfa, I don't think it needs to be there, but dry grass is there. So I'm going to put dry alfalfa here. And then, so alfalfa, dry alfalfa, grass. This one doesn't need to be here because we're not doing that. And so I'm just editing these quickly to make sure these reference properly. And basically alfalfa, dry alfalfa, grass, dry grass. So whenever the mower passes over these windrows, this is what's going to happen, or what it's going to look like. And that's what those mower effects are. Technically, we have our custom effects i3D file, which is fine. I'm just going to update the path. Mower effects is done. We're going to quickly go through these. Pickup effects is with like the pickup where you're picking it up from the ground. And again, dry alfalfa. We don't need any of the other crops that was in this thing. You only need the ones that you are adding. This file is somewhat complex because it was set up for a whole bunch of fill types that we are not adding. And again, alfalfa, dry alfalfa, alfalfa, dry alfalfa. There you go. We only need the alfalfa. That. Doot. Nothing else. I'm not touching anything else. These are all defined and you can copy these from the base game if you want. But basically how we created this file is by looking at the data directory. If we go into we're looking at pickup, right? We go to pickup effects. This is the default pickup effects file, right? And it specifies all of the stuff. And then we're just going to include the stuff that we need. So some map makers will take this file, copy it to their map, and add in the things they need. Technically, that's not needed. And the only time that's needed is if in your motion path effects file, there's now two pickup effects lines. One is the data directory. Give me the data directory stuff, and then also add mine. That's how I'm doing it. The other way to do it is to replace what's coming from the data directory with your custom copy of it, which means you need to manage all of those other effects as well. I don't want to do that. I think that this is a cleaner way of installing it. And this way, all I have to do is copy this directory, literally the effects directory, into the map, fix one line of code and maybe the paths to the i3D files, and I'm done. Versus having to edit all of these files custom for each and every map that I have. That to me seems quicker, easier, and much more enjoyable. So custom effects for alfalfa. custom effects for alfalfa. So these are the custom effects for alfalfa. And then technically, if I wanted to add custom effects for another crop, I could do it just by adding the files that are needed for that crop. And that separates those files into separate files. Technically, I think I could actually have these all in one file, but this is easier this way. Anyways, pick up 2 more. Tedder effects. We only need the dry alfalfa. That's the only one we're caring about. Save. Windrower effects. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. Don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need that. Bum, 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 bum. Windrower effects. Done. Oh, wait. Windrower effects. I forgot to edit this. And just to be safe, I'm going to come in here and search in this folder, find in folder, map US. Make sure I didn't catch any of the other stuff that I copied over. And map US is what that string I keep editing. So we fixed it. We got all of it. Cutter, windrower, pickup, tedder, motion path effects. And we're done. And so now, if we go back to our checklist, we did bales and we did effects. Save. Right. And then we come in here and we can go into the game and make sure it works. Our checklist is almost done. 2 more steps and we're going to be done. Career. Start. And again, we're still in a new save game. We're still in we're existing save game. I haven't changed my save game, but we are making changes to the map and making it better. We're fixing things. And that's one thing that a lot of people don't know when they're modding. You can work out of a folder. So if we look at my mod folder here, like this is a key thing that some people don't understand, and I've reiterated this multiple times, but this is my mod folder that I'm using right now for this game save. And as you can see, the map Valachi _ gaming, that's my version of the map. So I'm loading the map every time I start the game from a folder, not from a zip file, from a folder. I'm not re-zipping it every time. You haven't seen me do that once. You don't ever need to zip it unless you're sharing it with other people. You can run completely out of folders all day long and never need to zip it unless you want to put it up onto a server or something like that, right? So, and that's, I think, is key. Whoops, is it? That's key to how the game works and how you can work with how the game works, because it means that I can make changes very quickly, and then I don't have to deal with the process of zipping the file over and over, right? And so if we come up to our field, we still have bales, we still have windrows, right? And if we come in here now, well, let's connect. I think I disconnected somehow. Now I come in here, and now see I'm still getting a motion path effect error for windrow. So see how it says type cannot find motion path effect for typed motion path effect, rows 10, row length 15, alfalfa windrow. Now what does that mean? What does that actually mean? If we come in here to map edits, oh, we're still referencing the data folder. Okay, we forgot to update that one file. That was my fault. I forgot to update that. So in here in our map.xml file, we need to now update this to reference the motion path effects file in our folder, which is in effects, motion path effects, save. And I didn't zip anything. I changed one file. I'm going back in the game. That's it. It's quick and easy. It allows you to just kind of go in and out however you want and just make the changes you need. Easy peasy. The downside is you have to keep reloading the game. Because any changes to the map files only get loaded when the map's loaded for the first time. So I can't make changes to that file live. There are some files you can change live, but not that file. Not any changes to the map itself. You can change those, but you have to reload the map essentially completely. And there's no console command for completely reloading the map. You reload things in the map. You can reload store items, you can reload placeables and stuff like that, but you can't reload the entire map in its entirety. Okay, so I'm just going to tab. So now, if I connect to my Massey and I hit B, I've turned on the pickup effects, right? And if I put my pickup down, now you can see the effects of the alfalfa going into the baler, right? If we come over here, move this out of the way, go into our next vehicle. Hopefully not drive over too many baby bales. Turn that in. We have pickup effects. So now the pickup effects are working. We've confirmed the pickup effects are working. I'm not actually going to... We can create bales if we want. I know the bales work, so I'm not going to continue worry about the bales. We can test the forage wagon, the cutter effects, too. Come in here. O... G, N... G... X... We'll lower it down, and as you can see, it's not cutting. It's not, for some reason, the alfalfa is not cutting, and it's not going, but there's no error. Why is that not happening? So that's one thing that's not working. The effects there is not working. Let's see if my mower effect is working. And see the grass coming out of the windrow? So that's actually a windrower effect. Or a mower effect. It's one of the mower effects. So the mower effects are work. That's good. We can get a tedder. Let's get... I don't know what this is. Lease, yes. Okay. Let's get a tedder. We need a tedder and a windrower. We need to test both of those. Tedder. Lease, yes. Okay. And we need a windrower. It's one of the few tractors you can actually paint. Lease, yes. Okay. And we'll get a windrower real quick. And we'll get this one because it's the one I like. Lease, yes. We're going to teleport over to our field. And as you can see, our tether effects are working perfectly fine. We have an effect. We have dry clover. You can see there's some little bits of purple on the field left over from the dry clover. So this is what the dry clover looks like. Or not, dry alfalfa. Right? Do. The distance effects are kind of wonky, but that's kind of normal for giants. Move this over here. Tab, get this one. Now we'll see if the wind rower effects work. Again, when you're testing all of these things, always use base game equipment. Don't use modded equipment because you don't want your modded errors to show up as base game errors or as errors to what you're doing to the map. Always just test with base game equipment. And as you can see, the windrowing is working fine. We're getting actual windrows, so the windrow for the dry alfalfa works and it looks good. We're getting the windrower effects, which are the part where it's like spinning on the blades and stuff like that. That's what's all defined in the windrower effects file. Right. All right. Let's grab another forage harvester. Let's grab this one. Lease. Yes. Okay. We're going to get this one, I guess. Lease. Yes. Okay. And then we'll get a trailer. Trailers. Again, you have to do this every time. If you're doing it right, you have to do this every time. Lease. Yes. If you're testing your map properly, you have to do this every time. So many people don't test this stuff, and like one or two of these things are broken. And this is all just for adding one crop, you know what I mean? This thing's a gigantic. I don't think I've ever used this vehicle. Open the tarp. Open the pipe. Wow, the crone header on this vehicle looks like horrible, huh? 14. I have to unfold the pickup? Oh, the wheels. So can we pick up alfalfa? We can. And as you can see, when we pick up alfalfa, it's turning into chaff. So that's good. That's one we wanted. And so maybe, I bet we're not set up for the regular cutter. We're just set up for the mower. And 38, right? You can tell by playing this map since I know where the names or which fields are closest to the dealership. Let's go a mowing header. And so we should be able to mow with a forage harvester. All right. Let's do that. Come in here. Got the wrong header. Return. Yes. Okay. And I did bring the vehicle all the way down here because we need to pick up the other header, and the only way to do that is with the forage harvester itself. Nope, there. Where's the mowing header? Again, really, I don't like the lack of the New Holland mowing header. I think there should, or a colorable mowing header. But I always, there's a foldable one that I use when I do this for myself. But again, we have to check base game. I hate how crops show through trailers. I really don't like that. That's just not something I like. And as you can see, we can mow, and the mowing dumps into it. And so anytime we're using a forage harvester, it's creating chaff and putting it into a trailer, right? And so we are able to mow with a forage harvester and just create chaff willy-nilly straight up from the crop. Now we could set this so that it will create the crop itself, which is my default way of doing it and the way I like to do it. But that's enough for now. Okay, save. Quit. Because I did buy a bunch of machines, so I want to make sure I save that. Okay, what's next on our checklist? Last thing, combine mower. And then bunker silos we still have to do. And so that's, I think we're going to revert what we did before, but next one is combine mower. How do we get the combine mower to work? So the MacDon combine mower, right? What do we need to do to get that to work with our new crop? It's actually really easy. First thing we're going to do is we're going to open our config and go into fruit types. And then there is a category, a fruit type category for combine mower, which is basically all of the things that the combine mower can mow. I personally like to be able to do grass with the combine mower. Now, the combine mower is the threshing head, not the mower head. The mower head uses the mower thing. The combine mower is the threshing head, the one that spins, the big wide one. They are two different things, and the reason is that inside there needs to, because you need this right here for the conversion, the fruit type conversion. So see how this like forage harvester, we have the alfalfa, the chaff. So it adds it, but combine mower, see how mower and combine mower here, fruit type converter. And actually the one we're missing here, it didn't affect us at all because you have direct cutter, which is the mower. Anyways, combine mower, we're going to add grass and alfalfa to the combine mower. So if I use that combine mower, this is how you add it. So you have to add it here. And I'm adding both grass and alfalfa. Grass and alfalfa, grass gets converted to grass windrow, alfalfa gets converted to alfalfa. So you're converting from a crop, a fruit type, into a fill type. And that's what these conversions are. So grass and alfalfa, I am including grass to the combine mower, and I'm including alfalfa in the combine mower. And that's actually it. That's all you need to do. Well, it's almost it. The other thing you will need to do, and you'll see this if, why is this showing? I never show that. You'll see this in an error when you play the game, and we already kind of fixed it without really talking about it. But in your mower, is it mower effects? No, it's in cutter effects. So in cutter effects, you need this line right here to handle the combine mower effect, because so these are the effects that happen for the crops. So when you're using these type of cutters, cutter forage or cutter on a crop, this is what you need to add. And so this line right here is actually from the data directory. We go into data directory and go into cutter and go into cutter effects. You can see that for not maize, and if you're using it with like a cutter, you could do that, but I'll just leave it with the mower because I want it to act like grass. If we go to wheat, do you see how it is the wheat green big and harvest ready? It has this extra line here, and this extra line is for the combine mower because it is 3242, 32 rows, row length of 42. So you just copy this line into your own effects file for whatever you want. And this adds in that effect. Now you have to do two things. You have to add in that effect, but you also have to add in GE. Now I've already done this, so I'm not going to do it again, but I'll show you what I did. You have to add that effect to this effect file. So cutter effects grass message. This is the 32 by 42 effect. It's just this little bushel thing in the middle, and it gets stretched out to 32 by 42. But the reason it's like that is because if I were to open up from the data directory, the wheat cutter effects, oops, open external app. It also has that 32 by 42 thing. Here it is, 3242. And see, it's the same like size and shape as the one we have in our grass file. And we basically just copied the one from the grass file over to this file, from this file over to the grass file. And the reason is because they have that big grain header. And so that allows me to, when we're in the game, use the combine mower. So let's go check that out. We're not going to change that. And this one we're also not going to change. No. We're going to go back in the game. Start. And we'll be able to get the Mac on and be able to harvest the alfalfa, which is what we wanted in the first place. The mower would just work normally. What we want is the big, huge header. So we're going to go in, we're going to get the Mac on, and I think I activated it, and test to make sure we can mow that field. This, Mac on, please, yes, okay. And then we want to remember which one we want. This is the one for regular crops. This is the one for mowing. And as you can see right here, we also have grass and alfalfa in the icons for this thing. So we've added it properly. Yes, sure, why not? These, yes. Okay. I really wish you could color the Macton. I still haven't figured out how to do that. I'm sure I could, but I haven't figured it out yet. Come on. Guess I wasn't lined up. And especially on big maps, this is my favorite way to do grass and or alfalfa or clover or whatever. First, you need to unfold the tool header. I did. Why is this thing being dumb? Unfold header. Okay, whatevs. And as you can see, we're able to use this big, huge header on Alfalfa, which is, in all honesty, the best way to cut a crop like this is with the biggest tool available. But, you know, if you want to use smaller tools or you mowers or whatever you want to use, it all works. Perfect. Save. Our combine mower works. We go back to our checklist. Combine mower. Now bunker silos is a tough one, and animal feed is also a tough one. So for animal feed, I'm going to go over to here and remember how it works, as I don't remember. Not that one. Map US. So animal feed is defined up at the top of the file. It's not in the same area where we were before. But see right here where it says animals, and right here I have a config for animal food. This is how you do it. So if you want that to work with your animal food, you're going to copy this line. I'm going to go over to our file that we're editing. Close that, close that. We're going to open, no, we don't need effects right now. Map, come up to animals. We're going to replace the food with our own config file. And I just take it from a map that has it already set up. It's kind of a confusing file to set up. It's kind of a secretive file because it's technically from the data S directory, but just find a map that does it. For me, I'm using the Judith Plains, Montana map as the copy. So I'm going to copy this file and then go into my config folder, paste, and then I'm going to, you can see in this file, lots of changes have been made to allow dry alfalfa to suffice for dry grass or dry grass or regular grass. And so we're going to take out clover because it doesn't exist on this map or what we're doing. And corn stalks, bean stalks, can't do that. And that's it. So to be able to make forage, if I want to make TMR, I should be able to use dry alfalfa windrow also, which is the addition there. For horses, I should be able to also give them dry alfalfa instead of just hay. I should also be able to give them dry alfalfa or alfalfa hay. For sheep, I should also be able to give them dry alfalfa if I want. And for cows, I should also be able to give them dry alfalfa and regular alfalfa to suffice for gray or hay or grass if I'm using like one of those, the automated motorized feeder, blah, blah, blah. That's animal food. Animal food's done. So let's check that off. Bunker silos are a little bit tricky. And bunker silos, because of the way the game is built, will only work if you change a specific thing. So I'm going to go into placeables here for the map itself. And I'm going to find the bunker silos. So this is all the stuff that they included in the map as this comes with the map, right? Concrete plate. No, that's not it. I don't know what the bunker silos are on this map, but I know that the map has custom bunker silos. So I'm going to assume it's coming from one of these. If it's not, it becomes a much bigger problem. Silo pack. No, that looks like regular silos. Manure. No. Come on, where is it? It might be in brandless. No, hedges. So the other way to do it is to search. I'm going to search inside that file for bunker silo, the word bunker silo. And apparently we have this one, bunker silo large. We have bunker silo medium. So I'm only opening the XML files. I don't need to open those. So for the two that are included in the map, the ones that I can edit, all you do is come in here to bunker silo medium, bunker silo large. These are listed as type bunker silo. That's what I want. You scroll down to bunker silo. And right here is the magic. Accepted fill types. Chaff, grass windrow, dry grass windrow. And I can add in here, right here on this line, alfalfa, alfalfa windrow, and dry alfalfa windrow. Right? And that's it. And so the way the bunker silos work, copy, and then I'm going to save and go over to the bunker silo medium and do it there too. Right? Capital A. Capital A. Is it accepts these fill types as input and it converts it one-to-one to chaff. That's how the bunker silos work. Now, this is what I wish that Giants would do is it should say accepted fill type category. So let me check and see if that actually is a thing. I would expect that it should be accepted fill type category. So you should define a fill type category for it. But I don't think that Giants ever does that. And we can confirm by going to the XML documentation for placeable. Oh, done. Find accepted fill types. Bunker silo. And so this is one problem I think with the way Giants does their stuff is this means that for every single bunker silo everywhere, the accepted fill types are hard coded into that bunker silo. I think they should also, the default should not be that. The default should be bunker silo, accepted fill type categories, bunker silo, right? This is what I think should be there, but it's not. We should accept anything in the category of bunker silo. And then we did this before, right? In our config, fill types, right? We don't have a bunker silo. We have a farm silo, but we don't have a bunker silo. And that would mean that you could do this. Bunker silo. And I could set the bunker silo to be which means that from the fill types file, I would be able to control as a map maker what fill types are accepted in a bunker silo, which is logical and follows the pattern everywhere else. But again, Giants is not very good at being consistent. So this is what I think they should add. And maybe it won't happen until the next version of the game, but I'm going to submit it as a request, bug, trouble ticket, whatever, because that way, this is what your bunker silo would look like. Accepted fill type categories, bunker silo, input fill type, chaff, right? Output fill type silage. So you wouldn't have to make custom bunker silos for every single map, that every bunker silo would work on every map and it would work for whatever's specific on that map. And whatever specific on that map should be defined by the map, not by the mod. Does that make sense? So right now, this is not how it works. I'm gonna have to undo those changes, and because that's not how Giants has built it, and I'm gonna have to do this, which means that it's only gonna work for alfalfa windrow and dry alfalfa windrow for wherever these two bunkers are. And I'm hoping these are the ones that are in use by the BGA, and I'd have to go through and look. But if you remember also, we have all of these that are also all required mods. And I would assume if I'm unlucky, concrete silos. This is probably what it is. If we look in, let's open that file. I think this is where we're going to be unlucky. Is concrete silos. What does this say? Simple placeable. Okay, no, that's just a decoration. Maybe we'll get lucky, but I know that there's 3 different types of bunker silos. There's those long ones, there's the L-shaped one, and I think there's a short one, but maybe there's just a long one and the L-shaped one. We could obviously look here. This might be the L-shaped one. If this is the L-shaped one, I think we might be okay. And it got, nope. So this is just the medium one with the lights. I think these are the right ones. These are the ones that are at the BGA. So the ones that the BGA will work, essentially. And if we look at the large one. Oh, maybe Ballin is the square one. Yeah, here's the long one. Great. And then this is a simple placeable. That's interesting. Open an external app. Oh no, this is just a stack of bills. That's a workshop trigger in this building package. Maybe concrete. No, it wasn't concrete plate. I don't know what it was. It was there's something on the map that looks like a bunker silo. It's the L-shaped one, but it doesn't work. But anyways, that's how to get bunker silos to work. So now we should be able to do, we're saved. We changed the couple placeables. We should be able to go into the map and go to the BGA and dump alfalfa into the bunker silo, and it should convert to chaff. So let's test it. Obviously, we have to test everything. So let's test it. Okay. I don't feel like driving anything around the map, so I'm just going to get a truck. Let's get this thing, because this thing's awesome. Lease. Yes. In case you're wondering, I'm actually playing with this on my playthrough because it's a Russian map. Why not play with a Russian truck? GS. Fill unit add 1. Fill unit 3. Perfect. Now I've got a truck full of alfalfa windrow. And let's drive over to the BGA. and see if we can dump this in the BGA's container. Normally I would use base game equipment to test something like this, but whatever. This one I know works pretty well, and it doesn't have very many errors in the logs. Oh, by the way, speed trap. I just got a ticket for speeding. There's a cop there, and there's a speed trap camera. There's a speed camera right here. And you actually get speeding tickets. This map actually has a speed trap with a cop and speeding tickets and everything. I just got fined like $5,000. I was playing last night and I got a speeding ticket. I'm like, what the hell? I didn't know that. So yeah, apparently this map has a script in it that I didn't even know about that has a speed trap. And I was like driving this truck across the map, and you know, it's a truck, so it goes pretty fast. And I got a speeding ticket. I was like, what the? I didn't want to. What? I don't understand why that's happening. I don't get that. Anyways, so these are bunker silos, and I should control I, and I'm tipping alfalfa into the bunker silo. It's getting converted to chaff perfectly. And as it's a bunker silo, that means that as I drive over this, it will compact out and flatten. See it? See it compacting out and flattening as I'm driving over it. Because it's chaff. That's obviously what you want in a bunker silo. We'll do dry alfalfa in the other one, just to separate our test a little bit. And again, the dry alfalfa is also converting straight into chaff. And there you go. The last thing we have to test, and we'll do a test. We'll do what I said before, and we'll lease machines for it. Let's go with a fence. Lease. Yes. Okay. And then we'll go to the last thing was bale wrapping, because somebody was asking earlier about bale wrapping. So let's make sure bale wrapping works and it converts into silage. It's our last thing to test. We'll use this thing. I don't really use this thing very often, but why not be the first time today that I use this thing? I have lots of vehicles from testing. This is kind of how it works. Oh, I totally missed that one. Okay. What? Did I not connect to it? I thought I did. That's annoying. I thought I connected to it. Yoink. All right. Unfold the wrapper. Hopefully I didn't collect too much of this to be able to make a single bale. Okay, bale wrapping. We're baling, creating an alfalfa bale, a small one. And it's wrapping. And we've wrapped an alfalfa bale. Turn on auto drop. Auto drop. We look at our bale. This is a round bale that is alfalfa, 300. It's alfalfa, 3,500 liters, and set our time to 360. We can watch it ferment. That's gonna take forever. 2% every couple seconds. That's not fun. I'm gonna go to the house and sleep overnight. If I can figure out where the house trigger is. I don't even know where the sleep trigger is. Where's the sleep trigger on this house? Oh, it's inside. Oh, nice house. Sleep. Sleep. Okay. So we've gone to the next day. Let's try to jump over the fences again. Alfalfa is already regrowing. And this is still alfalfa, 96%. Looks like the alfalfa was already fully grown, but it doesn't wither, so that's good. And fermenting, speed up time. 97, 98, 99. Silage. And I think we can do space. Cut open bale, R. That's kind of weird. It's showing an alfalfa bale, but it should be silage. That's strange. That's a bug, I think. I don't know why that would happen. Maybe it didn't convert the fill type properly or something? That's super weird. See, bale, silage. Whatever, I don't care. It's close enough. Yeah, I don't like giants. I always use the rounder wrap bales. I always use that. That's the only mod I use. I'm going to ignore the fact that when I opened this, it was silage. I think that if I put it into a mixing wagon or sold it or whatever, it would sell as silage, not as alfalfa. I think this is just, I opened it too quickly or something like that. I don't actually think it's a bug with how I made the bales. But yeah, anyways, that's it. That is, we just added alfalfa with the proper checklist to everything. We added it, the foliage, we added it to the map, we made sure it's added to the map, fruit types, fruit type categories, fruit type converters, fill types, fill type categories, fill type converters, converters. Density might have height types, so it actually is a crop on the ground. It looks nice. It's fine, whatever. We made bales. Whoops, where'd my checklist go? We made bales. We made all of the effects. We got the combine mower to work. We got bunker silos to work. And we have custom animal feed. So we can use the alfalfa and animal feed. Now, and only now, alfalfa is added to this map properly. And I think the only thing we didn't do, if I go back to here, I can show you what we didn't do. The one thing we didn't do is this. We didn't add the translation for alfalfa. And so what that means is, and it's pretty simple, it's really easy to do, but the instructions for alfalfa windrow says doesn't have this fill type alfalfa or fill type alfalfa. It should be, the instructions have just the words dry alfalfa, which is fine, but it's not how it's supposed to work. To do it properly with a map, you should have dry alfalfa. And you should have a fill type, save, which should go into your translation files, translations, English, and find alfalfa. And we need try alfalfa, hey. And you would technically need this. So you'd need a translation, and you would need the same translation in all of your translation files. I'm not going to bother translating it right now. Don't care. I'm not releasing this to anyone, but technically you'd need it in all of them, or else it'll yell at you and whine at you in the log when you're starting up. But technically you need a translation for it. And that's it. That's literally everything. And I think the only other thing you could technically do, but the base game doesn't do it, so I'm not going to do it here, is you could make alfalfa bales purchasable in the store. And I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you could. And it would only be in the store on this map. Personally, I'm not going to bother ever buy bales of alfalfa. Like, why? But yeah. So what about the alfalfa, the forage harvester with the cutter head? Sure. So the forage harvester with the cutter head is a couple things. Let me figure it. I don't know off the top of my head, but let's figure it out real quick. Config fruit types. So we would need direct cutter alfalfa. We would need this right here. And that's it. You're welcome. That's all we need. And we would actually need the cutter effects. So you would need to do this right here for the maze cutter, right? So for the maze cutter, which is that weird looking cutter head, you add it here and it would work. But the effects wouldn't look right. And so what you'd have to do, and we deleted them, but you remember how we had cutter effects? There was also a cutter fruit effects file that we had copied over from our other map, which was here. Effects, cutter fruit effects, and cutter threshing effects. Yeah, you'd have to do this to be able to use that special cutter head. You would have to be able to basically have the fruit effects and the threshing effects for both of them to be able to use that cutter head. I wouldn't use that cutter head. It doesn't make sense to use it on a grass type crop, but that's all you would have to do. You'd have to add these two files into your effects file. You would have to make sure that it's using just like this alfalfa, and then yeah, that's all you have to do. So you need the cutter effects to do it, and then you'd have to add it right here to maze cutter, right? Maze header. Maze cutter is the spinny one. Or maze header. I don't know which one's which, actually. Let's look. I don't remember. Let's look because I don't remember. Kemper. Wasn't the end 2003? Anyone know what the name of the Kemper cutter head is? I bet you it's this one. Yeah. So this one, we go to cutter, maze cutter. So fruit type categories, maze cutter, and fruit type converter, forage harvester. So we already have the fruit type converter for the forage harvester. If you remember correctly, we have for the fruit type converter, we have the fruit type converter for forage harvester, where we're converting from alfalfa to chaff, right? And we also have the maize cutter is the fruit type category. And that's this one right here. So we had alfalfa. So if you want that header to work, there's a couple extra steps. I'm not going to do it because it doesn't make sense. And then the other thing we could do is this is what I would do typically, is do that. Right? So the reason I would do this is because when I'm cutting alfalfa, I don't want the trailer to fill up with chaff. That's weird. I want the trailer to fill up with alfalfa. Right? I want the alfalfa windrow to go in the trailer. That makes sense to me, because now that we have updated the bunker silos to accept alfalfa windrow, then this is the way I would play. So forage harvester, alfalfa windrow, done. And it would just be a 1-to-1 from your cutting. You can also update these numbers. So like, let's say if I use a forage harvester, or if I use a forage harvester, I get just a tiny bit more if I use a forage harvester. If I use a combine mower, I could get a lot more by using the combine mower. I get a benefit from using that type of cutter because it treats the grass, treats the alfalfa better or whatever. I don't know. You do your own logic. But I could make it give me more if I'm using the combine mower than with a regular mower, just by changing the factor here to 1.2, 1.1. But this way, if I use the forage cutter header, the mower header, it would, in the forage harvester, if it goes through the forage harvester at all, it's going to go from alfalfa to alfalfa windrow. And we can go back in the map real quick and look at that. And I'll show you. So what we changed is, instead of it making chaff at the forage harvester itself, you can make it, I just totally lost my train of thought. Instead of making chaff at the forage harvester itself, it's just going to make the windrow, which is what you want. One other fun thing that does work, this is my little secret of the day, is I actually had a mod that I made for myself in FS22 that made this change. And this change. So if I cut grass with a forage harvester, it would convert grass directly into silage with no need to do any kind of compressing. It was really funny because you're mowing grass and it's just dumping silage directly into the trailer. It was a really funny, like, it's totally not realistic at all. But I mean, some people don't like realistic. Some people want it to be less than realistic, right? But you can do that, and that's how to do it. You just change the converter within the forage harvester to convert from whatever crop it's cutting directly into silage. And you could do that for anything, really. You could have sorghum convert. If you want your forage harvester, when it mows sorghum, to not give you chaff, you could have it give you wheat if you wanted, just by doing that. Like, and it's specific to your map, unless you make a mod that dynamically injects the fruit type converters into the map after the map loads. But that would work, and it is pretty funny to play with. If you're ever interested, I can show you guys the mod. Where is it? So this is the mower. Fill unit, add 1. Fill unit, add. Fill unit, add, fill unit index, fill type name. 1. Oh, you know what? I'm probably not selected on the... Maybe selected on the trailer. Okay. Now it'll work. So now, if I start mowing, ready? So now what we just fixed is this. So now when I mow with the forage harvester, it's going to create alfalfa windrow in the trailer. And if I wanted to create silage directly in the trailer, all I'd have to do is change that one line and it'll be silage in the trailer. And the reason we did it as chaff originally is because we want the conversion to happen at the forage harvester, because then we don't have to support the bunker silos. But since we want to support the bunker silos, then it makes sense to do it this way, because we've already got the bunker silos to work. So this is the way I'm going to play the map. Phil, I already have a mod that does it. I already have a mod that injects fruit type converters into a map. I already have that. So if you want that, I will send it to you privately. It's totally cheating, but it's fun at the same time. That's it. And that's it for me today. And I think that that's going to be all. I mean, we showed you guys some cool stuff, and I hope everyone learned something. Yes, it took us 2.5 hours to do it, but we've done every little step end to end. We've tested along the way. We tested all the vehicles. We tested all the different kinds of equipment, and 99% of the stuff works. I don't know why when we got that bale to convert to silage, it didn't show up as silage. I think that's a bug in the game, not a bug in any of my code, but I will continue to test it. I think it, I mean, this is the line for fermenting output fill type silage. I don't know why it didn't change. I think it's just a bug in the game or whatever. Doesn't matter. I don't care. Everything else works. I don't usually wrap bales when I'm doing alfalfa. I might do it in my gameplay, and I'll let you know what the output is. But that's gonna be it for me today. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Thanks for coming along. I hope someone learned something. If you learned most of it, or if I missed something, or if I didn't explain something well enough, the best thing to do is to reach out to me on Discord. I'm always available on Discord. I'm always available to answer questions. If you're new to modding, or if you want to learn things like this and you want me to slow down and teach you one-on-one, let me know. Reach out to me on Discord. My members get priority with those kind of requests, and I do one-on-one training with people who have signed up for membership. So if you're not a member and you'd like to join, hit the join button down below. It's only a couple bucks, but that's the biggest benefit for joining for the membership, is I do one-on-one training for how to mod, how to build things, how to make things, how to do things the way you want, and how to fix essentially bugs in the game. But that's gonna be it for me today. A special thank you to all of my AI members who keep this channel alive and keep me going. Thank you so much for all your support. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.